Hello everyone, welcome back to Enlightened Learning. Today, we're going to go into a really big topic, especially in biology, which is called macromolecules. These are giant molecules that make up all living things, including you, me, and the plants, even bacteria. By the end of this video, you'll understand what they are, how they work, and why they're essential for life. So let's get started. So, the main question most people are wondering are basically, what are macromolecules? So, this is the question many people have when they start this subject. Of course, that's the obvious question, right? What are macromolecules? Well, if you break down the word, right? Macro actually means large in like in languages out there. I don't know, I'm not that advanced. And molecule just means oh my God, I suck at typing, sorry. Molecule just means a group of atoms bonded together. So macromolecules, as you can say, as you can put together, right? If macro means large, molecule means bonded together atoms, right? Then we can obviously put out the fact that macromolecules are just huge atoms bonded together, right? So that's what the word means. Macromolecules are basically large molecules made up of smaller units. Think of them as like Lego structures. How would you think of Lego structures, right? So kind of like that. So macromolecules are just like basically like that. So now we got the understanding of what they mean. So let's make a sticky note over here. Macromolecule is equal to large group of atoms bonded together. I think that's a pretty good definition to give what it could mean. So let's keep this in mind as we go through the unit. All right. So basically, there are four main types of macromolecules. The first one, carbohydrates. The second one, lipids. The third one, proteins. And the fourth one, nucleic acids. So these are the four main different groups of macromolecules and the ones we'll be learning about too. I just want to give some space here so we can like put some descriptions on them. All right. So each one has a different job in our body, and we'll go over that each in a way that's easy to understand. So carbohydrates are basically the energy source of the body. So these guys, the ones you see here, these is energy. So let me draw like a lightning bolt. Yeah, like that's energy, okay? So this means energy source. Carbohydrates are energy sources, meaning they're used to give our body energy, right? And they can be found in foods like bread, pasta, um, like fruits, vegetables, anything that's used for energy. They're like the basic building block of like how energy is even given to humans. Okay, talking about building blocks, their building blocks are monomers, okay? And a monomer is a building block. So basically, wait, let me rephrase that. The basic building block or monomer, meaning monomer is equal to a basic building block. So let me put it here. Monomer equals basic building block. So what monomer means as its name means basic building block. So the monomer of carbohydrates or the basic building block of carbohydrates is called a monosaccharide. So the monomer of carbs is a monosaccharide. Okay? That's the monomer. That's basically what builds up, if they are stacked upon each other, that builds up carbohydrates. That means one sugar. So monosaccharides mean one sugar. One sugar. I'm really bad at drawing, sorry guys. One sugar. So this is what it means, okay? Let's get rid of that. Um, so the most common example is glucose. And as many people know, glucose basically means sugar. So the sugar your cells use for energy is called glucose. So glucose is, let's make notes, okay, guys? Glucose is the sugar your body uses for energy. And in body specifically, I mean the cells. So the cells of your body use it for energy to like even work, support themselves, right? So like they actually like can function, right? So these play in like together. They play in a role together. So when many glucose molecules join together, they form a large carbohydrate like starch, which plants use to store energy, or glycogen, which animals, including humans, store in their muscles and liver. So the glucose joins together to form carbohydrates. So the glucose forms together. Let's rephrase that. Maybe join together to form, okay, carbohydrates. That's how they play hand in hand with each other, all right? So that's the main idea. Let's spread these out. I didn't realize we're going to have so much of information. All right. So we kind of got that. That's the basic general idea. These are all like all the general ideas of what it could mean. So in short, monomer is the monosaccharide for glucose or for carbohydrates, which is glucose, right? So glucose is the monomer for, let's say, carbs. I'm gonna just call it carbs. Monomer for carbs. So monomer we know is the basic building block. So meaning glucose is the monomer of carbohydrates. That means glucose builds up to make carbohydrates. As we said here, as glucose joins together, they form carbohydrates, which is how carbohydrates are formed in the first place, right? So that's how they're built up. Okay. Um, Polymers, like which is the polysaccharide, when they form is called that, and like it's gonna be called starch or glycogen. So when all those form up, they're considered polymers, which is the combined form of a monomer. And so when monosaccharides like glucose stack up, that entire thing is called a polysaccharide, and that's gonna be the starch and glycogen that's used in our bodies. All right, so that's what they're gonna be, and that just gives us energy. So let's say if you eat a bowl of rice or fruit, your body breaks it down into glucose, which fuels your brain and muscles. That's the main idea of what carbs are. All right, let's go to another topic. Let's go to lipids now, the long-term energy source. So lipids are a little different than carbohydrates. Let me explain one thing. They are both energy sources. They are both energy sources, but the only difference is that energy sources from lipids are stored for a long time use, while carbohydrates energy sources are kind of used for quick. So these lipids here, lipids energy sources are quick sources of energy. So let's say if you want to go for like if you have a marathon tomorrow and you want to get immediate energy, you would eat stuff that includes a lot of carbs, right? But if you want to store that energy for a decent amount of time, you'd want to eat something with more lipids, like that stores, oh, sorry, this one, uh, over time sources of energy, while energy sources here are quicker. So, eh, as a result, for carbs, you eat more of them when you have something immediately next to do. But you eat lipids more to store that energy over time to use it at a later time, right? So these include fats, oils, and waxes. And lipids are mostly made of carbon and hydrogen. So we're gonna write the elements carbon, try my best, carbon, and then hydrogen, right? So H and C both make up lipids. Uh, they don't mix with water, and that's why oil floats on top of water. That's kind of like a fun fact, not really important, but yeah. The building blocks of most lipids are fatty acids and glycerol. So, when we went over monomers, right? They're the basic building block, right? So, the building blocks or the monomers of lipids are fatty acids. So let's write this out. Monomers of lipids, stretch this out a little bit. Monomers of lipids are fatty acids and glycerol. All right, that's kind of the idea we're supposed to go with of what they are. So that's what we're gonna do. This is the monomer for lipids. Let's make it a little bit more neater. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so lipids, that's what their monomer is. They also have a different structure from carbohydrates, and instead of giving you quick energy, lipids store energy for long term. So not only do they have a different function, they also have a different like structure to them. We'll go over the structures in another video if I have any images to show you, but yeah. Uh, but that's not all of it. Lipids also make up cell membranes, and I'm assuming you guys all know what cell membranes are, right? Cell membranes are like the walls around your cells. They help insulate your body and protect your organs, and lipids just facilitate that function. So lipids are like your body's energy savings account. Like you know, you go to store in like a bank account. It's kind of like what your body's doing here. You're gonna save the energy for later use. Same thing with humans. We save our money in a bank to use it later. So they store that fuel, and when the carbohydrates run out, right? Because those run out quick. Those are quick energy sources, and they run out quickly. Lipids come into play. That's basically how they're gonna work out. So let's actually label that. Actually, I kind of wanna keep that highlighted. Um, lipids. Lipids are your body's energy savings account. Like that. They're kind of how we store money, and yeah, as I went over that example, they're just like humans, basically. Our bodies are just like humans, guys. Okay. Now the next topic is proteins, and I guess we all know what proteins are, but we're in biology. We have to make everything difficult, complex, unnecessarily. So yeah, proteins, they're known as the workers of the cell. So let's label that actually. That's kind of their big deal. They're the workers of the cell. So proteins are actually the most versatile, are like out of all the macromolecules. They do almost everything in the body. So they help you move, digest food, fight infections, and they even give your body structure like your hair and nails. So whatever structure you're seeing, whatever energy you're using, that's coming from proteins. Like they're doing almost everything in their body. So let's also label that as one of the examples, because that's really important to know when you get to biology, or if you're already in biology and you're learning this, and yeah, you have to know that proteins are the most versatile of all macromolecules. And just reiterating on the fact what macromolecules mean. Macromolecules are large groups of atoms bonded together. That's why carbohydrates are multiple atoms, lipids are multiple atoms. You see hydrogen and carbon, they're multiple atoms. Or yeah, so the most versatile of all macromolecules. And let's give some examples that I just stated. We could say that they help you movement, okay, digesting, fighting infections, and give body structure, such as nails and hair. This is a really important idea of what we can think about what proteins are, and there's some more to this, so let's keep going. Proteins are made of smaller units called amino acids. Okay, so let's stop here. Going on the idea of what a monomer is, basic building block, right? So using these ideas, if proteins are made up of smaller units called amino acids, which are building blocks, what is the monomer of protein? If you said this, you're right. It's amino acids. We went over this. So if you said amino acids, great job. That's the answer to this question. So basically, amino acids are basically the building blocks of protein. Let's label that. These are super important because they actually come up in a later unit called DNA and RNA, mRNA synthesis. So you need to know what amino acids do. Uh, they can also be combined in endless ways to make thousands of different proteins. And just like letters form words, amino acids form proteins, meaning they are monomers. These are really important to know. Amino acids, proteins, and it just keeps going, right? Monomers of lipids are fatty acids and glycerol. Amino acids, proteins, that's their monomer, right? And then glucose is a monomer of carbohydrates. These are super important to know for your biology classes. Those are like one of the most important things to know in your classes, especially if you're going into biology or any medical field. This is the basics of what you have to know. Let's go into an example. Let's say the protein hemoglobin carries oxygen in your blood. So hemoglobin is basically carrying oxygen in your blood. Okay, that's one of the examples. The protein enzymes speed up chemical reactions so your body can function properly. So enzymes is also another really important thing, right? So enzymes, you have to know this too. Enzymes, uh, they speed up chemical reactions so your body can function properly. These are super important to know because the functioning properly doesn't just happen out of nowhere, right? You're like your body has to actually get it from somewhere. So this is also something really important to know. So proteins, they're the workers of the cell, right? And enzymes speed up that work basically to like make your body more efficient. Like as all people would want, we want more efficiency, right? So we would also label that to proteins. Sorry if the arrows are getting a little confusing. They're kind of all connecting to each other. I know it's really bad, but it gets the main idea crossed around, right? So that's all that matters. Okay, now uh, let's go into the conclusion part. So just to say everything again, proteins are like the workers and machines of your body, always building, repairing, and keeping things running smoothly. That's all they're doing, okay? So that's what proteins are. Now, nucleic acids are the ones that are actually a little bit confusing. So let's go over it together. Nucleic acids are the information molecules. So let's write that down somewhere. Information molecules. You're gonna be like, what does that mean, bro? I can understand where you're coming from. It actually is really confusing, but it's really not at the same time. So that's good. It's good news. Information molecules. Finally, we have nucleic acids, which is DNA and RNA. Those are the two things you have to know in your biology class, DNA and RNA. Okay? Deoxyribonucleic acid. That is the definition of dRNA. Or, oh my god, dRNA? DNA. So DNA, let me see if I can spell this right. Deoxyribonucleic acid. I wasn't expecting to spell that right, so it's okay. Deoxyribonucleic acid. And RNA is, let me give you a hint. If deoxyribonucleic acid is DNA, what do you think RNA is? Whatever I highlighted is what RNA is. Ribonucleic acid. I know the spelling was right there. I wasn't looking. This is what amino acids are. DNA and RNA. These definition or the abbreviations, you should know them, but you should also know the full version of them. All right, so let's talk about what they are. These are the molecules that store and pass on genetic information. So what your mom and dad give you to look like how you look like right now, that is your genetic information, and that is carried by DNA and RNA. They tell your cells how to build proteins and control everything about how your body functions. So without these buddies over here, you'd be screwed right now. Let me write it. Without these buddies over here, you'd be screwed. We would look like, I don't know how we'd look. We would not have information to tell our bodies how to build ourselves, you know? So the building blocks, which is what? Monomers, right? Good job. Of nucleic acids are also called nucleotides. So that is also pretty important to know. Monomer of nucleic acids are called nucleotides. That is really important to know. Okay, I spelled it so bad it can't even find it. Okay, there you go. So the monomer of nucleic acids are called nucleotides. Okay, and each nucleotide has 3 parts. Let's see how artistic I am. Um, let's first describe which they are. So the first one is a sugar. Sugar. Okay, if I can spell it right. A phosphate group is the second one. Let's increase the size of this box so it doesn't just keep going down. I can get the size of this box. There you go. So a sugar, a phosphate group, and the last one is a nitrogen base. This is what the building blocks of nucleic acids are, nucleotides, and these are the three things that make up nucleotides. All right, so I would want to try and draw it. So let's see if I can find a good picture. Let's give me a second. So a sugar is already what we know as glucose, right? Phosphate group and nitrogen base is a little different. So let's see how to draw one. I'm trying to remember. I don't know, but I think the phosphate group is up here. Let's label this with P, okay? Label this with P. This is the phosphate group, okay? And this is gonna be really hard to draw, but this big boy over here is the pentose sugar. So this is gonna be the sugar, okay? So this is gonna be the sugar. Okay, let's redraw that. Sugar. This is gonna be the big sugar molecule. And this is the nitrogenous base, or the nitrogen base if you just want to go simple. So this is how a nucleotide looks. This is how all nucleotides look, actually. This is like how they're gonna be. And this is actually what builds up DNA. Like this is like they connect to make the DNA strands. And that goes into a really far unit, but let's like just know that for now. So that's pretty important to know, actually. And let's so yeah, that's kind of it. Like that, they just make up DNA strands. So this is gonna be the phosphate group. Let's see, phosphate group. It's gonna be the phosphate group. Yeah. Okay. I don't know if you guys can read that, but yeah. This is gonna be the sugar. Okay. This is gonna be the sugar. It's kind of easy just to remember it like this. And this is the nitrogen base. These are the three parts. So sugar goes in the middle. Phosphate group is a small p at the end here, so this goes at the top, and the nitrogen base is just a big square that connects it. That's it. That's all DNA strands. And that is part of this nucleic acids. Yes, you see, this part becomes a little confusing over time, but it kind of also becomes easier to understand because you get like really good at understanding it, right? So let's go on. DNA stores your genetic blueprint, which we already discussed, all the instructions to make you who you are. RNA, or ribonucleic acid, which is described conveniently right here for you guys, maybe it's important to remember, maybe, okay, helps translate those instructions into proteins. So the instructions made by DNA goes to RNA, and RNA is like, hey, how can we make the proteins? Oh, okay, I figured it out. Now it makes these guys over here. These guys over here. Proteins. So it kind of goes like DNA. DNA, how do you make the proteins, bro? And the DNA's like, okay, here's the instructions. And then RNA's like, all right, bet, I'll go send it to proteins. And then proteins are just made like that. That's how it works. So DNA is like a cookbook, and RNA is like the chef that reads the recipe and makes the meal. That's pretty much it. Okay, so how macromolecules work together. Since we already talked about each type, it's also important to know that they don't work by themselves. In living organisms, these molecules constantly interact. So, for example, carbohydrates provide the energy your proteins need to even function. Like you see how we said proteins are like the workers of the cell? Where do you think they get that energy from? They get the energy from these guys over here. Energy, right? So they make your energy to function, and lipids make up the membranes that keep the proteins and the DNA safe inside the cell. So this guy's like the protector. He protects everything. So these guys are vulnerable, right? These guys are vulnerable to any like destruction happening around the cell. This guy protects them. The lipids are like literally the goat, bro. Or else we would not like be made of ourselves. We wouldn't know how we look like. So that's how they actually interact. And nucleic acids give the instructions to make new proteins. Well, we kind of already went over this. Nucleic acids just make instructions to make proteins because nucleic acids, part of nucleic acids are the DNA and the ribonucleic acid, right? So they make up the proteins that we need in order to function, right? So together they form the foundation of all life. So that's kind of how they work. So let's have a quick recap. Let's summarize. Carbohydrates, quick energy, made of sugars. Lipids, long-term energy and cell membranes made of fatty acids and glycerol. Proteins do all the work, and they're made up of amino acids. And nucleic acids store genetic info, and they're made of nucleotides, which have three parts. And those three parts are right here. So all living things are built from these four macromolecules. Conclusion: next time you eat, exercise, or even just breathe, remember every single thing in your body does depend on these amazing molecules working together. So if you found this video, hit the like button and subscribe to Enlightened Learning for more science made simple. In the next video, we'll be looking forward to how enzymes help control reactions in your body, and it's going to be a fun one. Thanks for watching and keep learning.